In this tutorial, we are going to use a third-party form manager in case you are stuck on a static web host and can't handle any server-side code yourself. This isn't recommended because it gives you less options. The PHP solution that we're going to cover later will give you the option of getting a user's IP address, and it'll also structure your data better. But sometimes we can't do server-side code, so this allows us to get around that. Okay, so first, make sure you have actually done all of these page creation tutorials. Even the submit data to a server, this one will have a little bit of PHP in it, but you need to make sure that you're getting all of your data to the server first, and then we can look into using a third party. We will be editing v.html, so I'm going to open that. And we are also going to be editing common.js in the scripts folder. So depending on your third party, you might have a really easy experience here, or you might not. I am going to use this formsubmit.co. There was a group called FormSpree that had put all of their source online, and so you see a bunch of clones of their work, and this is one of those, I think. They have an option to send data to them asynchronously, which is how we currently do it. And if your form manager has this option, then your solution is going to be very, very simple. So basically you just take their address that you want to send to, so this formsubmit.co/ajax and it's going to use your email. You don't have to sign up or anything for this service, but you might want to make a burner email or something when when testing out these services. And so I already have one here. I'm just going to use testctviewer and a Gmail account. Let's see, so I'm going to copy their address for where I'm supposed to send data. And I'm going to open common.js, and right up here at the top you'll see this processing site variable. Right now it's going to process.php, which is our own file that we have for handling the data. But we're going to change this to their processing site. And so remember, they wanted an email address, so I'm going to put in my burner here. So testctviewer dot, I'm going to use Google Mail instead of Gmail. Okay, so whoops, at, not dot. Okay, so testctviewer at Google Mail. Okay, I'm going to save that. Already got my server running. So localhost. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly jump through this. Let me open up Control-Shift-I to open up my console here. Okay, so test Ajax. Submit, sending data. Successfully sent. So let's see what we got here. Well, you do have a new message. So form submit doesn't recognize this email. So I'm just going to hit activate form. Okay, and now I'm good. It'll probably send me another email with my actual data. And there's the trial I just did. So that's all there is to that. Something you might want to do, you may have noticed that they gave us this hash here. We can stick this in instead of our email address in common.js. If you don't want your email address in plain text just floating around on the internet, you could swap out this for your hash. I'm not going to worry about that because, surely you know how to copy and paste. Okay, let's say you're using a different form manager and they don't let you use Ajax. If this is the case, then we can rely on a more primitive way of submitting our form. So rather than using the formsubmit.co/ajax, we're just going to use this address. And where you stick this is in v.html. So up towards the top of the form, you'll actually see the form tag, and you see this action equals p.php. So this is where you'll want to stick that. So again, we'll do our email. So testctviewer@gmail.com. Okay, and we can also add some little inputs here that will config how the form submit, how our third-party manager handles our forms. But for now, let's see what this gets us. So just putting this form submit here, we will also have to change our send data function. So now it's worth mentioning I am going to be making a lot of changes to common.js, so if you want to, and it's recommended, make a copy of it. So just have a little backup here. Okay, so I'm going to be breaking apart this send data function. So I'm going to make a send data function. Send, let me make it a little bit bigger here. Let's see. There we go. Okay, function send data success. And function send data fail. We aren't going to be using these just yet. I'm just using these functions to cache code. We are going to go through a number of different styles on this primitive solution because some of you will be using a third-party manager which supports, all of these, and some won't. So basically, just go as far as you can. It'll all work. So this is where we're going to start with the easiest, most primitive, and start, faking it to look better and better. So right now, our send data as is has this successful state, it got the data and processed it, a failed state, and a failed because the file was too large. We're not going to be able to deal with this file too large in the primitive setup at all, so I'm going to take my fail and put it in fail here. And then take the success, put it in success. Okay, and now I'm just going to remove all of this. So from transmit all the way up to this creation of this request object. And because I'm no longer creating the data, I need to create the data again. So get all data. And then I am going to submit the form, but I want some flags for just keeping track of my state. So let's have a flag. So let's have a flag successful transmission. So let successful equal false. So this will tell us when we've actually, when we have deemed the transmission to be successful. Let tried send equal false. And so this is just turned true the first time we ever try to send, so that way we don't add data to our form multiple times. And let's have a timer, fail page timer, equal null. And hopefully we'll never have to rely on this timer, but it's going to be here as a backup. So get all data is going to have to change. So first, let's do if we haven't successfully transmitted, then try to transmit. So if our fail page timer is active, so if it doesn't equal null, then I definitely want to clear this. So clear timeout, fail page timer. And now start our fail page timer. So we use set timeout. And this will take a function. And the function we're going to use will be send data fail, but like I say, we're not going to actually mess with send data fail yet. So send data fail. And it also takes a number. So I'm just going to put in 10 seconds for now. So this is expressed in milliseconds. And let's actually submit our form. Okay. So $ function form ID dot submit. So let's now change getAllData to work with our primitive method. So right now getAllData makes this form object, and that appends a bunch of items to it and then sends it off. The primitive method only sends elements in our actual form. So in order to add elements to that form, we're just going to use addData. I'm going to do form.append. And I'm going to replace it with addData. Okay, and also down here we have formData.append, so I want to replace those as well. Yeah, we'll just do data. Okay, and in my populate fail page, instead of getting all data again, we never have to get all data again. It's all in our form. We put it there the first time. We're just going to be a new form data object. With our actual ID for our form. Okay. So this will get our form, and it will turn it into a string and populate that fail page text box. We want to make sure when we get our data that we only add it to the form once. So I want to add data. I want to add sent time multiple times, right? Every time they hit try again, I want to know, that they tried again at a specific time. So I'm going to have that one happen every time, and then have if not tried send. Oh, and that's actually if I tried send. Okay. So if I've already tried to send it once, then I'm going to assume I've already added all of this data. I also have no reason for this form object anymore. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing in my getAllData, because I don't want to append multiple shader logs or scroll datas. Okay, so I go to getMinimal, and I add data. If I've already sent, then I don't add any of this. If I've not tried to send, then I do add it. Same thing here. If I've already sent, I'm done. Again, I don't need this form. And then I need to actually set my tried send. And one other thing I want to do is I have no way of knowing which user sent me which data. So let's say they failed to send, I mean this won't matter right now, but if they failed to send, they will have the option to resend multiple times, which might actually get me multiple data if it just looks like they failed to send, but they actually had, 2 submissions clogged up in the network somewhere. They could both come through, and I want to make sure that, I know that they came from unique users. So I'm just going to add data here. Let's have a user ID. And I'm going to do math.random. So that'll just be a number between 0 and 1. The odds of 2 users getting the same random number are pretty low. So this basically sets their user ID the first time, and that's the user ID they submit everything with after that. Normally they will only have one submission because everything worked fine, but just in case it doesn't, you can now see if multiple submissions came from the same user. Okay, and before we go and test this out, let's change our debug button. So rather than start next, I'm just going to go to page, key comment. Okay, so let's try that. Let's go comments, and I'm going to open my terminal with Control-Shift-I. I hit submit, and my third-party manager by default wants me to go through a CAPTCHA. Kind of a bummer. And there's my new data. Okay, let's get rid of this CAPTCHA and let's add some other settings. So on the main page, they talk about the CAPTCHA, so I want to disable that. And this will go in my form here, so yeah. Okay, and so there's that. And I also, it is taking us to this thank you page, which I don't really care about. Now, maybe this is the thank you page you have to use. Maybe you'll have to use theirs. I don't know. This one definitely doesn't. Some don't. I can add this next option and specify my own thank you page. Okay, let's see. And whenever you publish this, you will have to change, your domain, because right now we're going to use localhost. So just go back here, Control A, Control C, okay, Control V. Oh. Oops, slash. Okay, and I don't have a thanks.html yet, so let's go here. Oh, not a folder. And open it. Okay, that's a good HTML document. You might want to spruce that up a little bit, but let's see. So let's try that again. Am I all saved? Yes, okay. So let's try that again. Jump to the end, submit, and it goes to my own thank you page. So that's nice. But you might, if you can make your own thank you page, you might have like some debrief information here, a little picture of where the nodules were or something very simple. It would not be recommended to actually reload the CT viewer and go to this specific slide for a debrief thing. That'd be a lot to load for very little gain. So if you want to, you don't actually have to leave your experiment page. So we're going to try and make it look like we had that Ajax option, but with this primitive option. So this gets kind of hacky. You may or may not be able to do some or all of this. So basically stop wherever you have to and go as far as you can. Let's go back. I can, in v.html, set a target up here in my form. And I'm just going to have it go to a dummy. Okay, and down at the bottom, probably not this far down, right here by this body tag, I'm going to make a div, style equals, and I'm going to do the CSS property display none. And in here I'm going to have an iframe. So its name is going to be dummy. So that target goes after the name here. Its ID, whoops, no commas, ID equals dummy. We're not going to use the ID just yet, but we'll want it for later, maybe. Source is nothing, it's hidden anyway, so what's it matter? And then we're going to add this onload event equals, and then let's just do send data update. The iframe. Okay, so let's make our send data update. Oops, function. Okay, so this, we're not going to bother doing anything if we haven't tried yet, or if we have actually successfully transmitted data. So if not tried, or we did successfully transmit, because like I say, you can get some of these transmissions just caught up in the network, and so you might have like 3 go through at the same time, and you don't want to be jumping around pages and triggering successes on the client side if that happens. So if you haven't tried to send yet, or you've already gotten a success message, then don't do anything. Okay, otherwise, let's do a send data check. So that event that we just added, this onload, this will be fired anytime anything loads in this iframe. So the very first time this page loads, this will fire. if you have no network connection and that little runny dinosaur Chrome no network page loads, this fires. This just fires and lets you know that the iframe changed. It doesn't tell you that you got anything successfully loaded in here or that it wasn't a 404 page or anything like that. Something is here, that's all you know. So we need to try and verify this something, externally. And that's really hard because it's possible the something in that iframe did not come from your website, and if that's the case, you're given very few options to actually check it. That's what this send data check is going to do. So send data check. Oh, that's a function. Okay, so right now we have a custom thank you page that actually did come from us. And so because of that, we can look at its source URL. So I'm going to do try catch there we go. Okay, so if I get to this, then maybe I didn't successfully do my check, in which case it wasn't from my website and therefore wasn't my thank you page. So this would be a fail, so send data fail. Otherwise, I'm going to try if dummy, $. So if that iframe dot content window dot location dot href is, and then this will be that same thank you page location. Okay. So if it's that, then I am going to send data success and return. Okay, so if the iframe holds my thank you page, then I'm going to assume everything went well and signify the success. If it doesn't, if it's very possible I can't even read this if it's not going to be this page, in which case it'll throw an exception, get out of this try block, and signify that it failed. So let's make these send data success and send data fail functions better. So this .status text isn't a thing anymore. So let's do successful transmission now equals true. And I don't want my fail timer going off. Okay, and then if I fail, I'm going to add a couple arguments here. So let's do code equals 0, text equals just an empty string. Okay, so if my fail page timer, because there's going to be multiple ways to start this send data fail, I can either actually fail to get my thank you page, or I can have my timeout go off. So if my timer's still going, so if fail page timer does not equal null, then I want to clear it. Okay, and then if it was a successful transmission, so if my timer somehow goes off right as this is becoming successful, I don't want to change away from my success page, so I'm going to add a check for that. So if successful transmission, just return. Okay, and now this request is a thing that doesn't actually exist anymore. So let's make one. And I'm going to do curly braces. And so we have this populate fail page where request has a status and a status text. So we need to add those two things. Status is going to status colon code. So our code is going to be our status, and our status text is going to be our text. Okay, so in our send data fail, let's add these arguments now. So if we fail down here, we're just going to give it a code 521, and the text failed to connect with remote server. Okay, and then up here where we time out, I'm going to give it the code 524. Okay. Okay, so let's try that. Refresh. Show my viewer. Okay. And some reason when I just jump to this page, it doesn't show my fireworks, but it's okay. It will show it if you actually progress to it naturally and you do get your data. But let's say I wasn't allowed to have my own thank you page. In that case, I wouldn't be able to make this check that I actually got to this location. So let's do let's make our display, our div where we have our iframe, let's actually make it show. So I'm going to change this none to block. And I'm going to remove our custom thank you page. So now if I refresh, we got this little empty iframe down here. I'm going to submit. And it's going to always tell me that it fails because it cannot actually get the location of this page because the page came from a different domain than where we're hosting. But you can look at this page and see if there are any images or logos on it. So when we when we submit a form, we can check to make sure that we can get from this computer to our form server by just seeing if we can see an image on it. So I'm just going to copy the image address. I'm going to go to my common. I'm going to make a new send data check. Let me just dump my address here. Okay, so I don't want this one anymore. Oops. Okay, so since we can no longer check for this, we're going to load this image and see if it successfully loads. Let's create an image. And we're going to give it an onload event. And that's going to go to our success page. So this will be a function, no arguments. And I'm just going to do a little debug here. So console.log success. Accessing web page. Okay, and I am going to add send data success. This will be image.onload. Oops. There we go. Okay, and similar thing here, but if it's on error, and then I failed to access the web page, and this will be my send data fail. Now to actually load the image, I'm going to do document.body.append a child image. And something else I want to do is make this image hidden, so image.style.display equals none. Okay, so this will hide it the same way we were hiding our iframe. So all this tells us is that we could get from this computer to the computer that that's handling our forms. This doesn't tell us anything about that computer actually processing our form and sending it to us, but it's probably a safe bet that if we could make a connection from our client's computer to that server, then everything else worked out fine too. Okay, something we don't want to forget is to actually add our image link to it. So image.source equals this. Okay, so now let's refresh. Try that. And we're good. Okay, so if you couldn't find an image on the thank you page, then any image anywhere on their actual page will do just fine. Say have a logo on their home page, you might have a little Twitter button or something, that's an image. I don't know if that image is actually hosted by Twitter or not, but if it's hosted by them, then yeah, that probably won't work. But if you can find a logo or something small anywhere on their page, that would work fine. If there are no images anywhere on their web page, then you can always use your own image. So I'm just going to pull one of my little dummy slides out. Rename. Let's do contest. So testing connection. Okay. Because if you can get from the client's computer to your own server, then it's probably reasonable to assume you'd also be able to get to the form submit server. It's not guaranteed, but most problems are going to be between the client and their access to the internet. So if you've ruled out that problem, then you can just send them the success page. So let's see, let's go to so /con test.png. Okay, we got our teeny tiny number. So let's copy this, Control A, C, and let's replace our image link with this one. And again, if you're using this, you'll have to change out your localhost 8000 for whatever your web address actually is when you put your experiment online. Submit. Okay, so that's good. With the form servers image in my URL, I'm just going to refresh my page and I'm going to turn off my internet. Okay, and then I'm just going to run, whoops, I actually want to go through this manually to see what my data ends up looking like. Okay, so try again. Okay, so that looks good. Doesn't look like we're duplicating any of our values except for our sent time, which will have a sent time for every time we press try again. And then if I turn my network back on, I'm going to try again, and it will successfully send. If you're using this method where you have your custom thank you page, it's possible they will take you to their redirect page first and then redirect you from there. So you might not want to say that you failed immediately. If you notice your fail page popping up and then getting immediately replaced by your send data, you might want to put an extra little timeout or something on this send data fail. And as far as up here, Again, I hope this timer is never actually used. It's only here in case browsers don't always trigger this on load event. So I'm going to set this back to none. And the time for this one right now, I just put in 10 seconds. But for your actual experiment, you might want this to be based on the download time. So you could do something like viewer get start time, and then subtract the page load time from that. And so this would be how long it took your viewer to actually download on the client system. You can double it or something if you want to have a margin. I didn't do this for the demo because right now I'm downloading from my local server, and that will make the downloads really fast, and then I'm uploading to a remote server, which will be very slow. So this would always time out and show my fail page before I want it to. But yeah, so hopefully one of these options will work for you, and you're done.